Whoopi once again has been caught being even dumber than we thought. Watch as she claims blacks in America have it worse than women in Iran. Roll it, Phyllis.
Let's just remember, too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that, we have been known in this country to tie gay folks to the car.
Where the Iranian regime is today in 2025 is nothing compared to the United States.
Hanging black people.
Robert De Niro, once celebrated as a cinematic legend known for his powerful performances and unforgettable roles, has become a lightning rod for political controversy. His transformation from revered actor to political firebrand has not only baffled audiences but also drawn fierce criticism from commentators like Joe Rogan and Jesse Waters. What was once a voice that echoed in the grand halls of Hollywood now trembles with frustration on courthouse steps. The recent spectacle outside a Manhattan courthouse where De Niro launched into an angry press conference has become a symbol of what many see as Hollywood's confused attempt to influence political discourse. And this time, he wasn't stepping into a scene from Raging Bull or Goodfellas. He was walking directly into a real-life takedown one, not scripted, not rehearsed, and certainly not kind. Joe Rogan and Jesse Waters did not just challenge his message. They dissected his behavior, mocked the delivery, and questioned the deeper meaning behind his actions. For a man who made his name portraying tough, composed, thoughtful characters, his emotional unraveling seemed like a sad parody of everything he once stood for. At the center of this political storm, De Niro appeared as a kind of ghost from a different era, masked up and seething with rage outside a courtroom. His goal was to denounce Donald Trump and support the Biden campaign, but the result was something far more chaotic. He didn't appear as a moral guide or wise elder statesman. Instead, he came off more like a confused relative at a family gathering who's lost touch with the current mood. He tried to use his fame as a tool of persuasion, but it backfired. Instead of inspiring confidence, his appearance ignited laughter, ridicule, and criticism. It didn't help that his speech came off as awkward and theatrical, filled with pauses and gestures that felt more like a blooper reel from an acting class than a political statement. Joe Rogan, known for his calm yet cutting commentary, watched. The event unfolds with a mix of confusion and amusement. He remarked that watching De Niro speak was like watching a psychological case study. Rogan, who respects raw honesty over showy performances, saw in De Niro's speech the exact opposite. A man clinging to old scripts, trying to remain relevant in a world that has moved past celebrity politics. Jesse Waters, on the other hand, didn't hold back. With his usual smirk and biting sarcasm, he tore into De Niro's press conference. Waters pointed out the absurdity of an actor playing mob bosses now trying to be the voice of reason. He mocked De Niro's contradictions. The man who once said to keep your mouth shut is now shouting at crowds, hoping they'll listen. He noted how ridiculous it looked for an 8-year-old Hollywood millionaire to stand outside a courthouse and compare Donald Trump to 9/11s, a statement so outrageous even liberal media personalities looked uncomfortable. The whole thing, according to Waters, felt less like political advocacy and more like a bad scene from a forgotten drama. De Niro, who once carried scenes with a glance or a word, now struggles to keep attention without screaming. His voice, once deep and commanding, trembled with rage and desperation. Trying to revive a political movement through sheer force of personality? But the crowd wasn't buying it. In fact, many mocked him to his face, shouting back at him as he tried to finish his speech. Joe Rogan's reaction was both personal and cultural. He said it pained him to watch someone he admired, someone whose films helped define American cinema, turn into a caricature of himself. De Niro's anger, Rogan noted, didn't come across as righteous or grounded. It felt like performance art gone wrong. He wasn't calmly making a case for change. He was shouting slogans and pointing fingers. Rogan explained how this kind of political shouting from celebrities rarely helps. In fact, it often pushes people away. When De Niro speaks, Rogan said, it's hard not to want to change the channel just to enjoy Taxi Driver without cringing. The dissonance between De Niro's characters come collected. And Powerful Land, his real-life persona, angry, ranting, and confused, is too great to ignore. Rogan sees it as a warning sign. When people stop challenging your ideas because you're famous, you start to believe your own press. And that's where things go wrong. De Niro has become a case study in what happens when cultural icons lose their sense of place. Once praised for his acting, he now seems to believe that every opinion he shares is gold. But outside the bubble of Hollywood, the reception is colder. The applause he once received on stage now turns into jeers on the street. And when he tries to reclaim relevance by shouting into microphones, it only adds fuel to the fire. Jesse Watters turned this contradiction into a comedy bit, asking why we're taking political advice from someone who hasn't done their own shopping in decades. Watters pointed out how out of touch De Niro sounded when talking about everyday struggles while living a life of luxury in New York's most expensive neighborhoods. He said that when De Niro yells about democracy, it feels less like a call to action and more like a tantrum from someone who's used to getting his way. What makes the whole situation even more surreal is that De Niro seems completely unaware of how he's being perceived. He didn't expect the backlash. He thought he was stepping onto a red carpet, but instead he fell through a trapdoor. Joe Rogan and Jesse Watters didn't have to try hard to tear him apart. De Niro handed them the material. Rogan, with his usual mix of humor and insight, explained that people like De Niro haven't had real pushback in years. They live in circles where everyone agrees with them, so they think the whole world must too. But outside of that bubble, people see right through it. They don't care about celebrity status or awards. They care about authenticity, and that's what De Niro lost. Even liberal voices started to question the wisdom of sending De Niro out for this political stunt. It wasn't just conservatives mocking him. It was the media trying to quietly walk back the entire event. Commentators said that maybe it wasn't a great idea to bring a Hollywood actor to a courthouse and let him compare Trump to national tragedies. The backlash was fast and loud. And yet, De Niro kept going, as if more shouting would fix it. That's when Rogan made one of his sharpest observations. When a celebrity stops being challenged, their ego grows unchecked. They begin to believe that their success in one area makes them experts in every area. They forget that acting isn't the same as living. They confuse applause with wisdom. And worst of all, they start thinking that louder means smarter. The scene outside the courthouse became a metaphor for something much bigger. It wasn't just about Robert De Niro. It was about an entire class of celebrities who think their opinions carry more weight because they've been in movies. It was about how political discourse has become a stage for theatrics rather than reason. Jesse Watters captured this perfectly. He said it wasn't just that De Niro was angry, it was that he was performing that anger, playing it like a role. But unlike a movie, there was no director, no script, and no editing. What came out was raw, unfiltered, and frankly, embarrassing. Watters said if De Niro wants to be taken seriously, maybe he should stick to making movies and leave politics to those who actually understand the issues. Joe Rogan didn't disagree. In fact, he took it a step further. He said De Niro's behavior wasn't just sedate, was dangerous. Because when powerful voices speak without thinking, they create confusion. They stir up emotions without offering solutions. And they distract from real problems with empty gestures. Rogan didn't shout. He didn't insult. He just calmly asked why a man who once stood for artistic greatness was now reduced to yelling on a sidewalk surrounded by cameras and chaos. He said the fall wasn't dramatic. It was slow and painful, like watching a hero lose his way. Criticism didn't stop there. Both Rogan and Watters pointed out the deep irony in De Niro's political stance. He claims to speak for the people, but he hasn't lived like the people in decades. He lives in wealth and comfort, shielded from the daily struggles of the average American. Yet he lectures those same people about how to vote and who to trust. Rogan said it best. This is the guy who played tough guys, now crying because people don't take him seriously when he talks about politics. It's not just a fall from grace, it's a complete loss of credibility. Waters had a field day with this point. He painted De Niro as a man yelling about problems he doesn't understand from a position of privilege he refuses to acknowledge. He said watching De Niro talk politics was like watching a man argue with himself in a mirror, completely unaware that the world has moved on. And the more De Niro talks, the worse it gets. Every interview, every press conference, every angry rant only deepens the gap between who he was and who he's become. Joe Rogan wrapped it all up with a sigh and a smirk. He said this isn't just about De Niro. It's about a larger pattern. It's about celebrities who think their job is to tell the world how to think. But the truth is, people are tired of being lectured. They want honesty, not drama. They want real talk, not rehearsed speeches. Rogan said the best thing people like De Niro can do is step back, let others speak, and maybe just enjoy the legacy they've already built, because every time they step into the political arena, they risk losing the respect they once had. As for Jesse Waters, he ended his commentary with a challenge. D. The notion that acting credentials are a substitute for real-world experience and insight. In doing so, they reminded everyone that being a legend in one field doesn't make you a leader in another. De Niro's legacy as an actor is secure. His performances in Raging Bull, The Godfather Part 2, and Taxi Driver will always be admired. But his political persona, that's quickly becoming a punchline. Rogan and Waters didn't destroy Robert De Niro. They simply held up a mirror. And what the world saw was not a towering figure of wisdom, but a man shouting into the wind, hoping someone still cares as the public moves forward. The lesson from this moment is clear. Celebrity doesn't equal authority. Passion doesn't replace knowledge. And shouting doesn't make your message stronger, it just makes it harder to hear. Joe Rogan and Jesse Waters, coming from very different backgrounds, delivered the same truth in their own styles. It's time for the noise to stop and for the conversation to begin. And maybe, just maybe, Robert De Niro should take a break from the microphones and rediscover the power of listening. Because at the end of the day, history will remember great actors for the roles they played, not the speeches they screamed. And for De Niro, the choice is simple.